Hi there, it's Tom with A2 Agile, back with you again. Had a brief hiatus last week to enjoy some nice weather, and I'm here today to start at it again, talking about leadership still. In fact, this is the last video in this series on leadership, and I want to combine two topics that I had mentioned originally in my first video about leadership, and I'm going to combine these two, and I'm going to call them micromanagement. And I want to be clear that micromanagement, it has a very negative connotation. It sort of implies that leaders are doing something wrong. But I want to be clear that being a leader is difficult, and trying to be a servant leader in a world where people are used to the old style of command and control leader can be a real challenge. And because people have an expectation that you'll do things that you shouldn't do. They're agile anti-patterns. So we're going to talk about two of those today. The first one is engaging directly with team members to influence their choices. Now, as leaders, we have a responsibility to communicate the vision early and often, and organizational goals, again, early and often. It's important that people understand these things. And so to that extent, you want to be talking to the teams and people throughout the organization. But when it comes to like sitting in on team meetings and you hear things that maybe in your experience don't sound right, it's just tempting to speak up and say, hey, this is what I've heard. It's important to resist those temptations, because despite the fact that you may have the best of intentions, you need to figure out how to let the team develop their own discovery. Now, one way to do that is to ask open-ended questions when somebody says they're doing something and you think that's wrong and you have experience to the contrary. Say, well, ask them to dig in and ask them why they're doing that, and probe a little and help them think it through themselves. That's totally okay. But to just tell them what you think they should do, that's not okay. We really want to try to stay away from that, because even though the team may or may not be empowered enough to ignore your suggestion, there's a compelling pull to do that. So that's one thing, just something to be aware of. Now, the other thing that happens with leaders is that people come to them and ask them to make decisions. And in a command and control type leadership situation, that's not only normal, it's expected. But in an agile environment where we're trying to empower people to make more decisions for themselves, it's important to resist the temptation to just offer a decision when you're asked to provide one. You need to stop and think. You need to think about whether it's your decision to make. And so the questions you might ask yourself is, well, do I know more about this question than the people that are coming to me do? Do I have more information that they need in order to make a good decision? Now, if the answer to that is yes, maybe it is your decision to make. But before you decide, ask yourself, why is it that you know more? Should you know more about this particular topic than them? If not, that brings us to another point, which is, why did they ask you for you to make this decision? What was their reasoning for coming to you? And I would say that there's probably two main reasons. I mean, there's always a million reasons for anything, but two main reasons. And the one is kind of the biggest, and I would put it under the category of team dysfunction. And that could be a lot of things. That could be fear. Maybe it's a big decision, and maybe the team's afraid that if they make it and it's the wrong choice, that leadership will come down on them. Well, that maybe isn't exactly a team dysfunction, but if If you think it is as a leader, it probably is. It means that they shouldn't be afraid, but they are. The other thing is like discord among team members. Maybe they can't agree on things and they're struggling to come to a decision on their own. You should help them make the decision, but don't let them off the hook. Teams need to learn to make decisions in some manner and fashion on their own, or they're not functional. And then that last one, like I said, there's a lot of them, but the other one that comes to my mind is sort of a lack of sufficient empowerment. And this team dysfunction may not be owned necessarily by the team, but it could be. They may just not feel empowered, even though they are. And so that just means they need more encouragement and reinforcement to go and make those decisions themselves. And then finally, the other big reason why teams don't make decisions is they're confused. They're confused about the vision or the goals of the organization, or they may just not understand the context around how this decision should be made. And maybe they should, maybe they're not listening, but I would say that as a leader, you want to own that one. If they're not getting it, that means you haven't done a good enough job of communicating. One expert in the field of agility once said, if you're trying to communicate your vision and your goals and objectives at an organizational level to the folks working within the organization, communicate with them twice as much as you think, and then do it 5 times as much more. In other words, you can't over communicate this stuff, because the more you talk about it, the more nuance that people pick up and the more they're going to learn. So I hope that these things will resonate with you. If you're a leader, this is really important stuff. If you're on a team and you're not getting this kind of direction from your leaders, then you're working against anti-patterns in the organization that are going to hinder your agile journey. And you should just know that. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but just being aware of it sometimes will help you decide when to go ask for a decision. Because you know that in some organizations, once you go ask for a decision, you're stuck with it. So just be thinking about that and try to be fearless. I hope you enjoyed this particular session. I hope to be talking to you again real soon, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll be back. Take care. Bye.